All right, I'm gonna stop playing around with you guys. I'm not refinishing this dresser in the video today. I am excited for it. It's gonna be an amazing project that you guys should stick around for. But in this video, I just needed something to hold up these nightstands. A matching set of nightstands is probably second best in terms of furniture flippability compared to a dresser. They refinish well and there's a great demand for them, especially if you have a matching set. That's the key. So keep your eye out, and if you can get a good deal, these will go for a lot of money. So just keep your eye out. These really won't fit in a modern home. The style is bad and the color is even worse. So there's gonna be a ton of work needed. But I think it's gonna be a fairly quick project, and you just have to stick around and see how they turn out. So although these nightstands are really ugly, everything is in good shape. There's nothing really loose, nothing broken. The drawers move smoothly. There's really not much we have to do to it structurally, but visually, there's definitely a lot of work that needs to be done. It's all really bad material. I've actually never seen this before. I've heard about it, but never seen it. But this is plastic, actual plastic with a wood sticker over it. I've seen MDF with a laminate coating over top to make it look like wood, but I've never seen just straight up wood with like paint. So I'm a little bit disappointed, but it makes our decision-making process really easy. The only way that we can refinish this is with some sort of paint. So easy choice there. I think that a French Provincial style like this looks really good in a nice bright white. I know I did the last project in white, but I can't change my preference. I think this will sell really well if I paint it white. So that's what we're gonna do. We just need to clean this up, wash it down, sand it, prime it, and paint it. It's gonna be a pretty easy flip. And if you're trying to get started in furniture refinishing, this is the sort of project that you wanna look for. If you can find the right deal, this is awesome. To get started refinishing these nightstands, we have to give everything a deep clean with warm soapy water or TSP cleaner. These feel absolutely disgusting. There is a thick, oily grime layer all over these that we need to remove. If we don't remove this, the paint will not adhere properly. Even if we sand it, we risk grinding that oil film into the wood, or in this case, plastic, and that oil will stop the primer and paint from truly bonding to the surface, meaning that it will peel off and fail prematurely, probably leading to some very unhappy clients. So make sure you do this right. There's no point in rushing this. There's also a few spiders that I have to evict. I sent them their eviction notice last month, so they should be out in about 2 days at the end of the business month. Although these nightstands were really small, a ton of oil and dirt came off of them. Take a look at how nasty this water got after just a little bit of cleaning. Watching this back makes me feel like I should have been wearing gloves. With everything clean, I can really inspect the piece for damage now. There is a little bit of laminate peeling and fiberboard swelling, but for the most part, everything's looking really good. A little bit of sanding with a medium grit sandpaper like 120 grit will take care of this no problem. And before we do any sort of sanding, I want to test these things for lead just to make sure I'm not going to kill myself. I do that with these cheap tests that I get on Amazon. They're way cheaper than a funeral, and you get to enjoy them when you're alive. So don't skip this step. They activate with some common household white vinegar, which I pour into any container I have on hand. From here, I pull out one test swab and immediately close the container so I don't contaminate any of the others. I dip it in the white vinegar to activate it, and it will turn a yellow color. This indicates that it's been activated and also contains no lead. If it's anything but yellow, it has been contaminated and you should get yourself a new test swab. From here, you want to rub it on all surfaces, and you want to make sure that you test areas where there's going to be multiple layers of finish, all layers of finish, because the top coat might not have lead, but the stain underneath it might. So you want to be able to test all areas and all layers of finish across your entire piece. And the swab came back completely yellow, which means no lead, and we're ready to safely continue. Even though the finish doesn't contain lead, it's always important to wear a respirator when you're sanding. I'm using 120 grit sandpaper to smooth out all the surfaces and remove any finish that might be peeling off. Now that I've sanded off most of the finish, you can see that I've exposed a lot of this MDF. This MDF is basically like high-grade cardboard. If I were to paint with a water-based paint directly on top of this, it would swell up the fibers again, just like the damaged spots to begin with. And the paint would either flake off or things would just not last very long. So I have to prime this with a shellac-based primer, a solvent or an oil-based primer. And what that will do is seal out all of the paint that I'll apply after from getting into this MDF and swelling it. It will also make the paint stick a lot better to a surface, even if it wasn't MDF. So it's a great step. It's gonna make a candy coating that I can apply paint safely to over top. Since I'm gonna be spraying these nightstands, I have to be extra careful with these drawers. I wanna get paint here, and I also don't wanna get paint inside here. So to do that, I'm gonna remove them, and I'm gonna tape off with painter's plastic the drawers and also cover up these holes so no paint or primer can get in here. Now before I do any sort of priming and painting on a piece like this, I made sure to go around the entire piece with some sort of paintable caulking. Paintable caulking helps you fill in these deep, dark cracks that occur at panel corners, legs, underneath the entire top. It just fills them in and makes sure that a dark crack is not going to ruin the look of your piece. If you paint something a nice bright color like I am, in this case white, a dark black crack is really going to stand out. So filling them with some sort of paintable caulking makes everything look a whole lot better when you're done. After it's dried, I go around and wipe everything down, make sure that I didn't get any excess anywhere, clean it off, and I'm ready for priming. I use a shellac-based primer. This is probably the best stuff that I've ever used. It dries really quick and it leaves a candy coating over everything that seals out any moisture and lets the paint stick really well. Gotta give it a stir. The shellac likes to separate from the white pigments. And I use a tinfoil lined painter's tray because it makes cleanup really easy. Try not to get any sort of dust in there. About a cup is all I really need for this first coat. Since the shellac-based primer dries so quickly, and it was so hot out, I was able to apply a second coat to all the surfaces right after I finished the first one. Now you can see that this primer has fully dried. I applied 2 thick coats of this shellac-based primer over top of all surfaces, and you can still see that although the fiberboard has been sealed in pretty well, There are places that have different texture pretty much everywhere, especially on the top where I burned through all the finish right down to that fiberboard. The drawers also have the same issue. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a pretty aggressive sand with 180 grit on the top surface and all the drawer fronts. This will buff out any of that weird texture, hopefully not burning through all the primer, and then I'll apply a third coat to the top of this. And hopefully after that, I can sand with 220 grit and have a perfect ultra smooth surface that has no texture. This will make the paint job look really nice. These drawer fronts turned out really well. I sanded them smooth and I really don't think I need to apply another layer of primer. I really didn't burn through anywhere, and half of them are solid maple. 2 of them are particle board. They turned out well. This is maple, so even if I did burn through a little bit, it's not going to swell up when I apply a water-based paint. So this is all good. Now that that final coat of primer is fully dry, I'm going to sand everything down with 220 grit sandpaper. On the top, I am going to hit it with 180 grit sandpaper, just lightly with my electric sander. So on closer inspection, I noticed that this leg is a little bit loose, and it's because this foot is actually a piece of plastic that's bolted from the inside onto the frame. So all we really have to do is tighten that down from the inside and everything will be fixed. Just a little extra thing we have to do. So from the inside, this is what it looks like. You can't really tell too well, but it does move a little bit. And this is the only thing holding it together. It probably isn't even glued. I just get a ratchet in there. You could probably use pliers if you really had to, but I'm just giving this a tighten. Tighten it until you hear a crack and then back off a quarter turn. Then you know it's tight. That, or make sure it's stripped. But that is all we need to do. And this doesn't move anymore. With all the legs secured and the primer dried and sanded smooth, it's time to get ready for painting. And the last thing I want to do is make sure that the area is clean and I've wiped off all the dust from the nightstands. This will make sure that the paint adheres properly to all the surfaces, and the spray gun isn't going to whip up any dust that will get stuck in the finish and ruin the overall look, making us do more steps than we need to. So I'm giving everything a good vacuum, just getting everything prepared for the next step. All right, for paint on this project, I'm going with Sherwin-Williams Gallery Series paint. This paint is the top of the line. You can't really get much better for a 1-part water-based finish. It dries extremely quick, and more importantly, it cures extremely quick, which is very important. You can take a look at my last video to find out why. You don't want to repeat the same mistakes that I did. It's just not worth it. If you're going to sell something on Facebook Marketplace and the next owner is going to be putting it through normal wear and tear right away, you want that paint to be cured. You don't want to have to wait 2 to 4 weeks for it to fully cure. Anyway, like I said, it dries extremely quick, which means that you cannot brush and roll it. It just won't work. The dry time is too quick. You need to spray it. And I got this sprayer on Amazon for about 60 to 70 Canadian dollars. Yeah, very, very cheap. It's basically just an advanced hair dryer, so pretty cheap. Just to put it into perspective, because a lot of people get scared by seeing this, a couple brushes, these 2 brushes are probably $40 combined, and then if you want to get some rollers, each one of these packs of 10 is going to be $10 to $15. And then you need the paint trays, you need all this, and they really don't last long. I find after one project, I throw them out. That's it. So this is really economical considering brushes and rollers. So don't be scared of one of these. You might have to buy some painter's plastic to drape around walls so you don't get it everywhere, but the spray gun is awesome. But moving on to paint. This is meant to be sprayed, so it's already really thin. I do thin it out with a little bit of water because this is a cheap spray gun, all things considered. So Just to make sure that it applies a really good layer, I do thin it out. But the first step is to stir it up to make sure that all the pigment and urethane is well mixed so that I get an even sheen from project to project and also batch to batch when I'm spraying it. So I do use a 190 micron filter to filter out any paint chunks. These normally get in when you're having the paint can open for a little bit of time, or just from the dried up paint that solidifies around the rim. When you open it, some can fall in. The nozzle of these spray guns are very narrow, so any little bit of paint can plug them up, stopping you mid-project, which is no fun, or be shot onto your piece of furniture, which is also no fun. You'll have to go back and sand it, or it might ruin it entirely. So that was about 500 milliliters of paint, and I'm gonna thin it down by about 5%. So in this case, that's about 25 milliliters of water. And I'm also gonna stir this up. All right, that's it. Just screw this on, and you're ready to go. I normally test it out just to make sure I'm getting a good coating on a scrap piece of cardboard or wood before I do any sort of spraying on an actual piece. Easy peasy. Now, things never go as planned. Somehow, I got the biggest clump of dust ever in the first coat of paint. But no worries, this paint dries in about an hour and I can go back and sand that out and then finish up with my second and final coat of paint. I quickly went over all the other surfaces with 220 grit sandpaper just to make sure that they were very smooth. Since these legs had such low clearance to the ground, it was really hard to spray them with my spray gun. To get a good coat of paint, I flipped them over. This allows me to access all edges of the legs and in places that I wouldn't be able to reach if they were upright. After I sprayed the legs, I could flip them back over and spray all other surfaces. So that last coat of paint is looking great. It's super uniform and I got full coverage. And the last thing I want to do is buff everything out. Although the surface is pretty smooth, there are a few little dust nibs in there. Not enough that I have to sand them out, just enough that I have to buff it. And I learned this trick for water-based polyurethane and oil-based polyurethane. Since this is a urethane enamel, it's basically the same thing. So this is a benefit. All you need is a little bit of card paper, or this is actually paper from one of those yard waste bags, and it has just enough of texture on it to buff out any of those spots. And by giving it a good rub everywhere on the surface, I can make this glassy smooth. Absolutely perfect. So I'm gonna go around and do all of those surfaces, and we should be done, ready to reassemble everything. And since I'm going to be reusing this hardware, I wanted to make sure it was very clean before reassembling it. It had the same greasy residue that the nightstands had. So I'm going to boil it in vinegar for about 2 hours and then just let it cool off overnight, come back with a wire brush and scrub them clean. Now it's time to put these handles back on and get a final look at this set of nightstands. So these nightstands are done. The paint's been curing for about 2 days, which is all a urethane enamel like this really needs to fully cure. So they're ready to be put on Facebook Marketplace and be subjected to their next lifetime of abuse. This set looks way better than when I first picked them up. If you can recall, a reddish purple tinge on top of the little bit less than modern French Provincial style. However, with this fresh coat of white paint, they look awesome, and I think they can fit into a modern home. At least that's what I'm hoping for, and I'm hoping that this is a quick flip on Facebook Marketplace and they sell for quite a bit more than what I paid for them, which should be easy. I pretty much got these for free. So I'm excited. Thanks for sticking with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let me know what you think, and if there's any other projects that you want to know about or see in the future, let me know.